1. The red undertones that inform my melanin were birthed in the Black Mountain foothills near the Tennessee-Mississippi border. My great-grandfather Albert found freedom just before the Trail of Tears migration and hooked up with an ornery black woman in West Point, Muddy Waters' neighbor. Miss Cora May, never one to hold anything long but money, sent him to his horse upon the news. She had things to do. My grandma would join the family business in a while. Miss Cora May carried 3 daughters and 2 sons into post-Reconstruction Mississippi, sown from different seeds. The women, their doors always open, were sexy to kill for. The men, loyal enough to do the job, cooking shine and running game. When the Klan came calling, the guns were loaded. My father and uncles, all under Miss Cora May's command, led rebellion against attack on their cottage industry, left red cotton to feed brittle soil, then scattered in 4 directions. After 3 draft-dodging years in Miami, Daddy ended up in Oklahoma, where his sisters somehow landed, and his mama joined them after California. 2. I am an Okie. Grew up on Cherokee, as did Zach, my first best friend, who lived 2 blocks away and wore the street in his skin. We liked basketball, cars, and never watched Westerns. Zach disappeared in high school after 1 year in war paint riding a spotted mare at pregame. He was gone before I had the chance to tell him what I already knew. Grandma never claimed native and hated anyone darker than a grocery bag. This is where I begin, on Cherokee, trying to find Zach to talk about this mascot issue. 3. The Beantown Honkies, the Johnson City Jarheads, the Washington Senators, the Oaktown Wannabes, the Cushing Crackers, the Tulsa Rednecks, the Old Baltimore Bigots, the Chicago Police Department, the White City Afrikaners, the Cook County Overseers, the Heritage Foundation, the Riverside Peckerwoods, the German Shepherds. 4. Quote, how politically correct can we get? To me, the folks who make these decisions need to get out more often. I think they insult those people by telling them, no, you're not smart enough to understand this. You should be feeling really horrible about it. It's ridiculous. End quote. Jeb Bush, Governor of Florida. 5. Miss Brooks urged me to return to school from the nervous back seat of my Mustang in 1994. But what triggered the movement was an Enid, Oklahoma drunken conversation in a honky-tonk with friends from high school, all white and pseudo-liberal. We deliberated level playing fields and Jesse Jackson while the sad child of Hank Williams warbled something loud about loneliness. Just as 12 years prior, I was cultural diversity at the table and no longer comfortable. One man, maybe my closest Oklahomie in the bar, assured me the residuals of chattel slavery no longer existed while leaning against the door of a 100-year-old family business. I enrolled in African American Studies 2 months later. He will not remember this exchange any more than he will recall the night I was informed my blackness was a liability in his pursuit of teenage pussy. History will tell on you. My mother's people came from a small town in central Texas called Calvert. And Calvert, Texas is remarkable for a couple of reasons. One, because it's one of the earliest organized black towns in the state of Texas. And two, because downtown Calvert, Texas to this day looks like the set of Gunsmoke, right? Hitching posts and troughs for horses. And you go there today with your horse and your wagon, you'd be good, right? There's a ritual that has been taking place for now roughly about 600 years in Calvert, Texas. The ritual actually precedes the Texans, Africans in Texas receiving the news of emancipation, which is celebrated what we know as Juneteenth, right? And so this ritual involves the descendants of folks who were buried in the black cemetery there, coming every summer to clean the graves. Cleaning graves in Calvert for my Papa Johnny Hodge, my great-great-grandfather. Under a crying elder willow, we meet the 107-degree shade, bearing thirsty earth from which I sprang. A safe house next door to a tinderbox church, sanctuary from hot Lone Star nights. Though your face is hidden, I feel you in the folds, calling beyond the tired summer crops to bring us here. We were last to know. Ritual precedes emancipation. As I mentioned a moment ago, my mother passed in 2005, and this poem is an elegy exploring memories of my mother via the senses. It's called Mama Sense, an elegy. Scent. Mama was loud, a live broadcast. The weather always spring on her neck and bosom. She worked 3/11, so weekends I watched her wrestle skirts over slips, long and white, check hose for runs. Blouse and smock latched, the sugary mist, flower water in angled ray and shadow. Tiny shards rode parched afternoon between tired beige curtains. Touch. Labor to find the words, an uneasy freedom, jitters of a woman whose core was salt, divine as laughter. I spoke them first, new language to our dialect, 24 years lived in. Geography and telephone wire changed little. She became awkward as adolescence. I was teenage smooth from town. She, big-boned farm girl with smile vast as Texas. I love you, Mama. Later, she let me hold her hand. Sight. Morning night finds me in chatter with a flirting star. Kiss skin of dream. Linger as calm trees utter your name. It has not rained in days. Bruised sun whispers storm to quiet. Sound. My second son came quietly, 60 seconds before blue flushed red. Has not stopped talking since. His tongue a net of lost time. Mama's song only lessened the volume. Her tones, his colicky pillow, rooted hum the balm for a 2-week bad day. Melody, nothing you know, yet every cell swears it gospel. Taste. After your mama dies, there is no guarantee anyone will pray for you. So we'll do a little less heavy, and then we'll get back to more heavy. You guys all right? Good. So there's a section in the book devoted to my oldest Oklahoma, my oldest best friend. We met in the 3rd grade, reconnected in 6th grade when my school was closed due to desegregation in the mid-70s, and pretty inseparable for the rest of our lives. And he died in a hiking accident in North Carolina. So this is a poem exploring something silly that happened during high school in Oklahoma. One Friday that we had a football game, I was asked to deliver the prayer before the game. But we had another kind of ritual before high school football games, which I decided that I should go ahead and participate in, even though I had to go read a prayer at a football game, right? Pre-game rituals. After weighing the sugar content of Green Springs and Boone's Farm, the press box didn't seem so high. My ascent noted by well-wishers. Mr. Clausing skulks the doorway, explains how sound travels, pauses, travels back this gridiron valley. Prayer in hand reeks of stale grapes. I open my mouth, its volume wide as Friday night. Aunt Bonnell's words in my voice careen off the far side, return in white light. Woozy, I sway into the text, petition for harmless battle, good sportsmanship and grace, dodging myself like a boxer. Rowdy friends gather in bleachers, share my joy. You are there. So is she. Never thought she'd come between. Lately such an evil spirit. My homeboy used to have a series of just really awful girlfriends. I mean, today you'd call them B words, right? And they were always threatened by our friendship. So he would always disappear with his lady friends, and they always hated me. This is another poem from the series of poems about my boy Russ. I don't know if you all may remember this, but in the middle of the 80s, there was a very fascinating interstellar moment, right, called the harmonic convergence. Do you remember this? Does anyone remember this? Any youngsters don't know the harmonic convergence? Yeah, I see some, I don't know. The harmonic convergence was a moment, I guess it happens every 1,000 years or so, where all of the planets are aligned, right? So the day of the harmonic convergence in the middle of the 80s, it was also a special day for another reason, right? Which we didn't know, but you will know for sure. On the day of the harmonic convergence, a 1972 Audi Fox, known as the Sun Car because my homies cut out most of the roof and its hue, which had sat idle for 8 months, started without a second thought. It was Elvis's birthday, And though we knew this, we didn't realize until we drove to the store in Russ's ride, the Sun car set half a block earlier, to learn royalty was in the park. All the planets aligned. It was not our fault they became angry at us, laughing at the poor excuse for a dead king, jiggling pasty flesh in August heat. It was not coincidence. We went back to the purple basement, built a shrine to capture music between us, felt earth push and spin. So, in Chicago, we can claim to be the foundation for the President of the United States and the murder capital of the country, all in the same sentence. So, on the, it's like kind of like this, right? Like, ah! Right? Like, kind of almost, yeah. It's a poem about a situation that I drove into one night after teaching a night class at the university. It's called Dead, Dead, Heat on the South Side. It's in 3 parts. 1. Last night, police cordoned the 4 square blocks surrounding my house in pursuit of a thug who unloaded on the shell of a gangster in the funeral parlor filled with formaldehyde and lead. Black folks scattered, staining complicated streets. I settle in for summer, the maze to the front door, running teens from my stoop smelling of weed and tragedy, reminding my sons they are not sources of admiration, praying that might change. Not yet June, heat rises like the murder rate, gleam and pop already midnight's bitter tune. 2. 15 years ago, Taimba Jess told me about a funeral home with a drive-through window. You pull up, push a call button, through bulletproof glass, a friendly, somber attendant takes your request. Moments later, casket open, your order appears for review. At the time, I thought it inhumane. Now I think about the abstraction of friendship while counting bullets. 3. Is there an extra dead? What is the term for dying again when already killing cheap? And what of the corpses that walk my block in the anonymity of black skin and white tees filled with fluid? So every town, right? Every town has urban myths, right? Racine, I'm sure Racine has some urban myths, right? Remember in New York, the urban myths were so profound that even movies were made of them, like crocodiles in a sewer system, right? So when I was living in Brooklyn, I was told about this myth, this urban myth, which, you know, the things about myths is that it could be true, maybe it's not true, right? So I'll let you be the judge of that. This is called Body Shop. I've heard tell of a hustle in Brooklyn where clever folks throw themselves in front of cars lurching down Eastern Parkway. Not the beat-up green minivans or duct-tape Toyotas of poets, not Impalas bleeding chrome, spinning disposable testosterone, but mid to high-end machines of certain insurance booty, drivers in the 30 to 50 year range, same demographic as Oprah's audience. I suppose there is a right and wrong approach to this science, the angles of minimal damage to consider, side to bumper, back to door, head up, unless her poodle is well groomed. Few have retired, I would speculate, but work less now that checks lack bounce and the mailman walks briskly. It must be the eyes, wide and clean, that distinguish these impact Alvin Ailey's from ordinary jaywalkers. At Utica, I marvel at the desperate genius, the split-second calculus, the risks and gains of such occupation before descent into the dark anonymity of the 4 train. So I'll read one more and then I'll ask my new friend Dan Nilsson to warm up that guitar, right? Say guitar, that's Oklahoma coming out of me right there. So this is called, This Is Not a Political Poem, It's About Vermin. And there are 2 quotes in this poem. The first from Rick Perry, the second from Rick Santorum, both during that amazing moment called the Republican primary season. This is not a political poem, it's about vermin. There is a rodent problem in DC. Even Adams Morgan. Living creatures avoid anything with DuPont on the label, so that quadrant is free and clear. This is not rhetoric. This is simply ugly like the word hemorrhoid. Texas justice is infallible. Cheap speech for the hunted. Blacks were happier during slavery. More compelling script, a smooth jazz and elevator music. My old sax playing homie said, the next time you hear smooth jazz, ask yourself what's been smoothed over. I feel for both mouse and rat, but how to know which to befriend. Ben was easy to love. He had a soundtrack, but Willard was a motherfucker. All right, Dan, you ready to do this? So this is completely, hours of rehearsal went into this moment. Not. You want to sit? Okay. So, this is called Fun at Bonk. Thank you all for being here. It's a great audience. Okay. You start. I'm gonna feel you, and then I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna read a few very Oklahoma poems. So think highway in between here and Chicago, or maybe between outside of Milwaukee. Think pastures and cows and cud and such. So these first 2, harvest and after harvest. Yellow gold overgrowth. Wheat like children raising arms high to be picked. Everywhere is shaft scraping cloud. Everywhere is nowhere. What's behind looks like what's ahead. A boy no more than 12, commanding earth. Tiny monarch in green glass. A southwestern Pope-mobile, sweating progress. The smooth hand of machine. Keep it going. Do the next one just like that. After harvest. From mullet to buzz cut. Used up bread basket for a world that barely cares. Tipped cereal box. Braided rose half unkempt. Tossed by God's breathing. Jagged stubble in blistering sun. The almost bald head endless flat. Mane cropped by fortress that blocks traffic in both directions. Vaulted cockpit, a telephone booth with hips. Helix of blade, a sinister grin. Idle. Only sky to fill time. Give Dan some love. Hours of rehearsal brought this together. Okay, so we're going to do another one. And this poem is called Blur. And before Dan finds his groove, I need to tell you a little bit about Blur. Driving down Highway 74 through the middle of Oklahoma. And there's reference in this poem to a woman named Karen Silkwood. Do you all know that name? Are there some youngsters who don't know that name that need to be a professor for a moment? Okay. Karen Silkwood was an employee at the Kermagee Nuclear Facility in the middle of central Oklahoma, outside of a town called Crescent. It was the first nuclear facility in that region of the country. And as you can imagine, it employed a lot of folks. Folks were very excited about it. It was a revenue generator. And Karen noted that there were a series of leaks at this nuclear reactor facility, and she tried to gain attention, the attention of her co-workers who didn't want to have anything to do with her because their livelihoods would be affected. Her superiors didn't want to have anything to do with her and told her to stop this nonsense. And she started to make some noise in DC, and when DC started to pay a little bit of attention to her, about a week or so after that, she was found on the side of Highway 74, dead, with the door of her car open and her body sort of half out of the car. And after she was murdered, then OSHA finally came to the plant and determined that yes, she was right. There was this very serious series of nuclear leaks, and they shut down the plant. Right. There was a major motion picture made of Karen Silkwood's life in the late 80s. Meryl Streep played Karen Silkwood. It's a great movie. It's a hell of a story. So this is called Blur. sulking two-lane highway. Herefords and steer wave sad, watery eyes, mouthfuls of bad manners. This mid-sized sports car, momentary thrill, quick escape from mulch, ominous future. A crimson valley just beyond the fading idea of intersection. Carrying Silkwood's pale imprint, lifeless silos, limping tall grass. A town named Crescent struggling to recover after death, her murder wrought 3 decades gone. Speed zone, 55, 45, then 35, now 25, Pentecostal church, bowing A-frames, tasty treat, jail, post office, then 35, 45, 55, 70, a memory withering on the roadside. Very nice, my friend. And I'll close with this. Thank you all for being here. And it's always good to see Nick. It's always good to be in Racine. And thank you all. I'm sorry about the first 2 features. I mean, we tried to, I hope I was alright, but we tried to keep the first 2 features. So I'm going to close with a poem called Pilgrimage, and which is the last poem in the first section of the book. I had the great privilege, actually just about a year after my mother passed, I was invited to be a part of a team of colleagues from Chicago State University, where I labor on the wine press of academia. And to go to Ghana. We were developing textbooks for K3 in particular. We call in these states we'd say pre-K, the 3rd grade, developing textbooks that had a girl-forward focus. The dropout rate in most sub-Saharan nations in Africa for girls at the age of about 13, 14 is about 87%. And also with illustrations that were also reflective of the cultures. Most of the texts in sub-Saharan Africa, particularly in Ghana, were made in either Switzerland or London. And so why would a young Fulani child, how could a young Fulani child connect with a picture of a blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid on a snow mountain, right? Never seen those things before, at least not that I. So I was very privileged and honored to be a part of this team to develop these textbooks. And it was my first trip to the continent, my only trip to the continent at this point. And I happened to wake up twice on the 2nd leg of this flight once we left Schiphol in Amsterdam. I woke up once over the Alps, which was breathtaking. And then the second time that I awoke was just as we were flying over the continent, northern Africa. So I saw where the shore of North Africa meets the Mediterranean. I was like seeing a map that has lived in my imagination for my life, seeing it out of a window and flying over the Sahara, which was just breathtaking. So I'll leave you with this, and thank you all again for coming. Pilgrimage. Body Africa is almost sick, almost healthy, thin about the waist, bone weak to bone, belligerent joints, frantic memory, perpetual fever. And again, the desert's toothless mouth as weathered palm, rouge to solemn bronze. Nothing is moving, she whispers, only sand that bears your name. The Mediterranean makes its point. I am not where you are. Algeria's glassy forehead to furrowed brow, the Sahara's hot breath, incessant stutter, dusky cough of cloud. Older here, sun wrinkles toward ocean, weary of moon. I long to kiss the endless horizon, the sediment of our suns, ankle high in questions.